Now, I don't think a lot of you guys will experience this, but having a maid is not all that it seems to be. Like, most maids just come into your place, clean up, and then just leave the next minute. And sometimes they don't do such a good job. Sometimes they do. I don't know. But I remember one time when I was a kid, I actually had like a full-on maid, but this maid was kind of like really weird champ. And the way the story goes is honestly insane. But before that, obviously, make sure you guys do leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. And on top of that, click the link in the description down below because I am currently live as we speak. Now, other than that, let's get straight into this crazy video. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name is Bubba, and welcome back to another insane story. So this story takes place, funny enough, back when I was in middle school. This was my grade 7-year middle school, so, you know, just a basic middle schooler. And I'm not gonna lie, I was not attractive, I was not beautiful, I was not anything special at all. I was just a basic middle schooler. And I remember one time when I was heading on my way home, I remember I got a call from my mom on my iPhone 4. Yes, I had an iPhone 4 in middle school. I was that cool, okay? And I remember when I answered the phone, my mom was like, "Hey, honey, so, we're gonna be having a maid come by the house, when you're home, but me and your father won't be home. We'll be busy, and, we'll be doing some work." I was kind of like, "Oh, okay, mom, like, that's cool. Like, I'll just go in my room and play Xbox." And then she told me, "Yeah, just make sure to check on the maid, like, once in a while. We hired a new one because we need a new one for our place." And I told her, "Mom, like, I get it. I know what to do, blah, blah, blah." You know, me acting like the cool kid in middle school. I don't know. As I was hitting puberty, I realized that I really wanted to talk to my parents less and less. But now that I'm a moved out adult, I really want to see them more. I should call my mom later. Anyways, going on though. I remember I ended up going back to my place, and I remember I entered my house and I saw that there was a car parked in our parking lot. It was just a basic Nissan hatchback vehicle, nothing special. And I remember I went inside and I ended up seeing a lady. And this lady was the maid. I walk up to her, I'm like, "Hi, like, I live here. My room's upstairs. You can clean it whenever." And I just went upstairs. I didn't even say hi, nothing. I just said I lived here. And simple as that. I think I was going through like depression that time. I'm not even gonna lie. I was really sad. I don't know what happened. You know what? Maybe it's another story to tell eventually. But going on. I remember I go upstairs to my room and I remember I started playing Xbox. And as I was playing Xbox, I remember I ended up hearing some noises downstairs. First, it was like some clicker clankering. It was like like weird stuff like that. So I thought she was just cleaning. But then I ended up hearing a big crash. A crash that kind of went like and I was terrified. I was like, what was that? I ended up standing up, running downstairs, and I went downstairs and I saw it was a broken vase. Apparently the maid ended up, you know, breaking this vase of ours, and I was just confused. I'm like, "Why'd you do that? You literally broke the vase." And the girl looks at me and she's like, "Listen, you were really mean to me when you came in here. Now you don't have to yell at me for doing a silly mistake. Seriously, just stop." I ended up looking at her. I'm like, "Okay, dude, whatever." And I ended up going back upstairs. I ended up texting my mom that the maid broke the vase, but to be honest, she already seemed very upset. So I ended up hearing my maid getting a phone call because I heard her phone ringing, and I bet it was my mother. And then as I was hearing from outside my door, I ended up hearing the maid say, "Oh, your son ended up breaking the vase downstairs. I apologize. I'll clean it up for you guys. He was just a little reckless when he got home." And I opened the door and I'm like, "What? Are you saying I broke the vase?" Instantly, my parents decided that it was probably a good time to come home. So they ended up coming home as the maid was cleaning, and I was just angry in my room about this maid lying about me. And this maid was like very just obnoxious. Like, I don't know why I hate her to like the deepest passion. Like, I never hated anyone more. Anyways, I remember my parents come home and then they came up to my room and my dad's like, "So be honest, did you break the vase and blame it on the maid?" I ended up looking at him like, "No, Dad, I didn't break the vase. It wasn't me. I swear she broke it. I was in my room playing Xbox." And then the maid ends up, you know, talking to my mom, and, you know, she's lying to my mom saying I broke it. And then after that, it just became a whole disaster. They didn't end up firing the maid, but I remember the next day when the maid came back to my house, I remember my parents were gone again, and I remember the worst thing ended up happening. I was in my room playing Xbox, same as usual, playing Black Ops 2. I was in a search and destroy lobby, and I remember the maid comes upstairs to my room and she said, "Listen, I get you're trying to get me fired, but I really do need this job. So honestly, I think we can make it work out." I ended up looking at her. I'm like, "What do you want?" She ends up walking in front of my TV as I'm playing Xbox, and she's like, "Listen, we seriously need to talk. Can you focus?" I end up looking at her. I'm like, "What do you want?" She ends up unbuttoning her shirt, and then I ended up seeing her cherries. Now, at this point, I didn't know what was going on. I remember I looked at her. I'm like, "Okay, whoa, stop. Whoa, I'm in the middle of a game right now." And it was kind of funny because I'm not gonna lie, the people I was playing with can hear everything I was saying, what the maid was saying. And after that, she ended up showing me her cherries, and she's like, "There, now we're even," and ends up going back downstairs. Reminder, this maid I think was like 22 years old, 26. I didn't think she knew any better, but her thinking I was like a high school hormonal boy, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it wasn't that bad of a thing to look at. I remember I ended up going back downstairs, and all I could focus on was her and her cherries when I was just trying to get some food. And then she looks at me and she's like, what, are you trying to look at him again? I looked at her and I'm like, no, I was just, food. She ends up laughing. She's like, you're even stuttering for me. That's unreal. And then goes back to cleaning. I run back upstairs to my room and I ended up talking to my boys on Xbox. And I'm like, boys, the maid is actually hot. All of them start like laughing and freaking out because of what just happened earlier. And then we all just start laughing. Now, funny enough, the story doesn't end there. I remember a week goes by and the maid didn't come over. She only came twice a week. And the next week later on, she came into my house on a Tuesday and she came into my place and she started walking around. She started walking around trying to like, you know, basically clean up what she can. And then she came into my room. She came into my room. She came into my closet and she ended up taking a pair of underwear. Now, reminder, this underwear was clean. This was clean, basic clean underwear. And I remember she ended up putting it on my bed saying, do you ever wear these? I ended up looking at them and I'm like, yeah, that's my underwear. But what do you want with it? She looks at me and she's like, okay. And just grabs them and puts it in her bra and walks away. I look at her and I'm like, did she really just take my underwear? Are you serious right now? I was just so confused. And I remember I'm like, can I have my underwear back? Like, please? She ends up looking at me. She's like, fine, then give me the ones you're wearing right now. I look at her and I'm like, but they're not clean. She's like, oh, like I'll clean them later. Like, it's fine. And me thinking that she just wanted to do her maidly duties or something, I ended up going to my room, taking off my underwear and taking back my underwear that she had originally. And I went upstairs, put on that pair of underwear, and then I went back downstairs. But when I came back downstairs, she was gone. She wasn't at my place anymore. She was just gone. I don't know where she went, but you know, as I looked around, I realized that my underwear was not even at home anymore. She took my underwear with her home. At this point, I was very confused. And I remember I ended up calling my mom and I'm like, hey mom, the maid stole something from me. My mom started panicking. She's like, oh, like what'd she take? Did she take your Xbox? Did she take your TV? Like what happened? And I told my mom, yeah, mom, she took my underwear. My mom started laughing like crazy and she's like, oh, like we'll find it. It's probably somewhere at home. She left it. It's all fine. And I'm like, no, mom, she took my underwear. My mom had no idea what to say at that point and she was just majorly confused. She was like, okay, I guess. And yeah, long story short, we had no idea what the situation was, especially me. My parents thought I was joking and lying and making a good joke out of the maid ever since the first situation I had with her. And me, I knew there was a deeper secret to my maid, but I had to wait the next 2 weeks to figure out what was gonna happen. I knew there was a deeper secret to my maid. I knew there was something wrong with her. Ever since she stole my underwear, I knew that something was absolutely just terrifying. But it wasn't until 2 weeks later I found out she had a deeper secret. But of course, it didn't come straight away. I remember as weeks went on, me and her, we never really got along. She would come over, she would always look at me, stare me down, and well, I would just keep doing the same old me stuff. For example, play video games, or go downstairs and eat something in the kitchen, or just do the basic child things that I would do in middle school. Now, reminder, in middle school, I never had really any focus on women other than my middle school crush, but she's a whole different story to tell. I remember one time I was sitting in the living room watching some TV, and I was just eating my sandwich that I was made earlier for my mom. My mom wasn't home, nor my dad, because they both went to work at the time. And I remember I was just eating my sandwich, but then something odd happened. I remember I ended up hearing my maid on the phone call with some random person. At first, I was like kind of curious of what was going on, but I kind of tried to ignore it. But then she came into the room I was in and still was on the phone. And she said something like this. Oh yeah, like, no, I'm just taking care of like their kid. And then like, I'm just like cleaning up the place. But like, if you want to come help me clean, that'll be cool. What? You're bringing someone to help clean my house? What? I was so confused. And I remember I turned around over the couch and I said, what do you mean you're bringing someone else? At first, my thought was a guy. I was worried it was going to be some other guy and I was ready to go get my phone and call my mom just to catch her in the act of bringing another person over. But then I remember my maid looks at me and says, oh, don't worry, kiddo. Like, it's going to be fine. Like, she's actually like really awesome. She said she. So if she said she, that means she's bringing another maid over. So you're telling me I'm going to have 2 hot maids in my house and I have nothing to do? Now, this is where it gets weird. I remember out of curiosity, I started like basically eating my sandwich as quick as I can, turning off the TV and went upstairs to my room. This time I was going to catch her in the act of doing something weird, but I had no idea what. My first intention was to text my mom saying, Mom, she's bringing another person over. This is dangerous. But if it was just another maid, wouldn't that be beneficial to clean the house faster? I don't know. I didn't know what to think at the moment. So I remember I ended up just kind of sitting in my room, looking off my balcony, because, you know, I was beside the balcony because I had a cool window, and looking out for the other maid. This other maid came in a black SUV and instantly came out of this vehicle after like 20 minutes later. The other maid was still in the house, just dusting things off. And then I remember when this maid came out of her car. Oh my goodness. If I can mention how big her cherries were, I would, but I don't think they would fit the screen of this video. Anyways, I remember she started entering my house, and as I was just looking out my window, staring her down, a hand touched my shoulder. It was my other maid. The other maid that originally was working there in the first place looks over at me and says, she's hot, isn't she? And I'm like, what? I wasn't staring at that. What are you talking about? And she looks over at my Xbox and she's like, well, you weren't playing your Xbox off. Yeah, I was about to turn it on, is what I said to her, but she wasn't wasn't gonna believe me. So I remember out of curiosity, I had no idea what to do. I was panicking left and right. So I remember I decided to basically tell her, I'm just playing games, okay? Just go get out of my room. And then she said, whatever you say, and walked out of my room. Now, at first, I thought that was just it. But knowing I had two maids downstairs, and one of them I didn't know at all, and the other one my parents hired, well, this story was only gonna get more interesting. I remember I was basically just sitting down and playing my Xbox. And I remember I decided to leave my room to go take a shower because, well, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of stank that day because of school. I went and took a shower, and then I remember I hear the maids come upstairs from the bathroom. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't wearing anything at this moment. I was just in the bathroom getting ready, about to take a shower. But I remember I ended up putting on a towel around my waist, and I decided to say, what is going on? I need to find out what's happening. So I decided to put the towel on, and I went out and I went straight to my room. When I went into my room, I realized that both of the maids were in there at the same time. I remember one of the maids turns around and she's like, oh, we haven't met yet. Hi. And then she gives me her hand and I shake her hand. But as I shake her hand, I'm not gonna lie, I was only staring at one thing, and you guys know what. And the other maid looked at me and said, oh my God, Bubba, I can see you're literally staring. I look at her and I'm like, what do you mean staring? I wasn't staring at anything. Why are you being so weird? Then, I'm not gonna lie, it became really awkward. I was kind of embarrassed because I was just wearing a towel at the time. So I remember they both looked at me kind of weird and said, so like, are you gonna like take a shower, or are you just here to like take off your towel in front of us? I remember I looked at both of them. I'm like, no, that's not the case. I'm gonna go take a shower. Leave me alone. And I left my room and went to the shower. But as I was showering, I remember I ended up hearing a, oh my goodness, no way, this is actually right here. My head started like booming. I was thinking, what the hell did they find? So I remember I ended up getting my towel back on again when I was about to turn on the shower and literally run straight to my room. I said, what'd you guys find? She pulls something out of under my bed. And I'm embarrassed to say this, honestly, guys. I don't really want to say this part, but it goes with the story. She found a towel. But this was no ordinary towel, folks. This was my devil's cream towel. Yeah, very embarrassing. I remember the maids were both picking it up, and one of them even decided to smell it. Like, they weren't grossed out by it at all. They were just like sniffing it, looking at it as if it was like some kind of like candy. I remember I looked at her and I'm like, stop touching that. I remember I grabbed it from her hand and I instantly took it to the shower with me, or to the bathroom with me. I didn't take it in the shower. That would be weird. Out of pure embarrassment, I remember I was so embarrassed to the point where I was like, okay, this is getting way too weird. I don't want them in my room anymore because, for God's sakes, I don't know what else they could find. So I remember I went back into my room afterwards, after my shower, and I realized that they weren't in my room. I remember I got changed quickly and I went inside and went to go out and look for them. When I looked around the house for them, I couldn't find them anywhere until I said, oh, maybe they left. Maybe they left early. So I went upstairs to my room, and when I went in my room, I heard a noise inside the bathroom that I was just in after my shower. And one thing I realized that I forgot, I left my devil's cream towel in there. Now this is where things get really bad. I remember when I went to go look for my towel and grab it, the maid was already in there, but not the maid that was originally in there. It was some other maid, the other maid that, you know, came to the house recently. I remember I look at her and I'm like, hey, I'm just looking for something. Have you seen it? She looks at me with like a smile and she's like, yeah, the other one took it home. What? What'd she take? She looks at me with like a smile and she's like, you know what she took. Don't be weird. And then after that, she went out of the bathroom. She went out of the bathroom. She finished up downstairs, and then I heard a knock on the door. At this point, I was terrified, and I'm like, okay, who in the world is here now? I don't like this. I went downstairs. I opened the door, and I saw it was my parents. My parents just both came home from work at the same time, apparently, out of nowhere. And I was fully dressed, and I was gonna tell them that the maid stole something else, but how in the world do you tell your parents that your maid stole your devil's cream towel? Like how? Like literally how? So I remember I decided to literally just let it go. I knew that something was up with this maid. And then I remember the other maid, that new maid, came downstairs and saw my parents and said, oh, hi, I'm just a replacement for now, just in case. I'm gonna be helping out a bit. The other one had to leave early for an inconvenience. As she said inconvenience, she stared me down and I was weirded out. I didn't know what to think. I honestly was in like that state of, oh my God, I'm gonna die kind of state. But honestly, I don't know. I don't know what happens next, because what happened next happened a month later. Yes, I had a maid for almost 3 months, okay? Leave me alone. My parents weren't rich. We just had a dirty house all the time, okay? I didn't know what else to say. 1 month later goes by of me having this maid, and honestly, this maid was just a normal maid, but at the same time, she did some really suspicious things. Like I said, I mentioned in the last 2 episodes, this maid was not normal. Something was always off about her, and the way she would act towards me, the way she would represent herself towards me was very, how do I put this? As if she always wanted to do the devil's tango. But anyways, I remember one time, I was in my room, and this was like a month later before the last time she stole my devil's cream towel, and she ended up coming back to our place and working again. My parents weren't home once again because, like I said, they had jobs to do. And I remember I was just at home by myself, just kind of doing my own thing. And by my own thing, yes, I do mean playing Call of Duty. I was still playing Call of Duty in my room, just doing my own thing. And I remember when I heard the maid enter the door and saying, oh, hi, like, good to see you guys, as my parents were about to leave. I remember once my parents left the door and the maid closed close the door for, you know, her to start her cleaning thing, she instantly went upstairs and went straight to my room and said, "Hey, Baba, it's been a while since I last saw you. What have you been up to?" I look at her and I'm like, what? Because I didn't know what to tell the chick that was supposed to be literally cleaning my house what I was up to. Like, what am I supposed to tell her? Oh, like, you know, I'm just chilling at home playing Call of Duty. Simple as that. Like, what was I supposed to say to her? Anyway, she looks over at me in the most weirdest way and she keeps glancing at me as if I was like some kind of candy to her. And then she ends up just leaving my room, closing my door and going back to clean the house. And then I remember as she was like cleaning the house and stuff, I'm just like kind of just like doing my own thing and just playing the game. And then I hear a crash. All I hear is like a and I'm like, what in the world just happened? I started stressing out. So I remember I ended up going downstairs and I saw that she ended up breaking a plate. But this was no ordinary plate. This is one of my mom's like fine china that she had originally. And at this point, I remember I looked at her and I'm like, no way you just broke that plate. How could you do that? She looks at me and she's like, okay, listen. We cannot tell your parents. I'm going to clean it up and everything will be fine. Do you know where your mom got the plate in the first place? I looked at her and I'm like, no, I don't know where she got the plate. It was like some fine china, dude. I don't know where she got it from. And then she looks at me. She's like, listen, Bubba, you cannot tell your parents at all what just happened. I'm like, no, I have to. And after that, she's like, oh yeah, then I'm gonna say you did it. And I look at her, I'm like, you can't do that. They'll never believe that. I would never break my mom's plate like that. And then she looks over at me and she's like, oh yeah? Well then if you tell them, I'm gonna tell them your dirty little secret. And I'm like, what? And then she said that you have a crush on me. No, I don't is what I told her. Cause like I only had one crush when I was back in middle school and that was my middle school crush. And then she ended up saying, oh yeah, then why do you keep staring at me then? And I said, cause you make me stare at you. I don't know what that means, but honestly, like it was the only answer I could think of at the time, but going on. And then what ended up happening next was the most weirdest and most awkwardest thing ever. She literally says, oh yeah, then look at this, and then takes off her top. Like she ended up literally flashing me and I saw her cherries, bro. Like what? Honestly, it was super awkward. And I remember I told him like, oh my goodness, like stop it. That's so not right, dude. Even though I'm not gonna lie, I was staring him down like crazy. And then she ends up putting it back on and she's like, okay, well, I showed you that. Do not tell your parents. I remember I looked at her and I'm like, that's not the deal. Like what? We're not even making a deal. I have to tell my mom that you broke the china. She looks at me all pissed off and she's like, listen to me. I will give you and send you something and it's a super secret link to my life. And if you do, then it could be a secret for a secret. I ended up looking at her. I'm like, what kind of secret? Because I was actually kind of curious. And she's like, I'll show you how I make millions of dollars. I ended up looking at her. I'm like, millions of dollars? She literally looks at me again. She's like, millions of dollars. You heard me. And she literally gave me $500 in cash. Now, $500 back when I was a kid was a lot. So I knew that she was right about something, that she was making money and it was not just from being a maid. So I remember I shook her hand and it was a deal. After that, I remember I went back up straight to my room and I ended up sitting in my room playing Call of Duty again because, well, we made a fair deal. I wouldn't say anything about the plate or the fine china. And she would send me her darkest secret of how she made so much money. And on top of that, you know, I got $500. Like, I'm not really gonna complain, am I? Anyways, going on, I remember like as I'm up in my room, I want to say an hour goes by. And when an hour goes by, I realized that there was a knock on my door. I remember I ended up just turning towards the door and saying, oh, like you can just come in. She comes into the room and then she brings her friend. And her friend was there originally that I saw in the last episode. If you guys didn't see the last episode of, you know, the story time, you guys would not know who I'm talking about. But let's just say she had a friend that also came and worked with her. And she came into the room and she said, hey, I'm going to give you this. And she handed me a flash drive. That is my secret of how I made millions of dollars. And you cannot tell your parents. You understand me? I ended up looking at her and I saw the other girl and I'm like, yeah, like I won't say anything. We made a deal. And after that, she smiles and then walks out of the room. And then after that, the other girl, which was her friend that was working with her, she looks at me as well and she's like, by the way, like you're really nasty, aren't you? And then she walks out of the room. I had no idea why now she hated me, but something wasn't connecting. Anyways, after that, I remember they ended up leaving the house because they finished their work. And I remember I was just at home sitting on my Xbox, not knowing what to do at all. But I kept staring down at the flash drive that she gave me. When I saw her flash drive, I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna open it. So that's what I did. I went downstairs. I stole my dad's laptop that he used for work because both my parents were home at the time. And I literally just sat down in the living room and plugged in the flash drive knowing that I could make thousands of dollars from what she is about to give me. And instantly when I plugged in the flash drive, I saw there was a notepad and it was just a basic link. I didn't know what this link led to. So I remember I ended up opening the link and putting it in Google. And what it was legit a website where she went live on and showing people her, you know, herself. Let's just say she was like basically on the hub. Okay, she was a hub star basically, but on a different website. I remember when I saw that, I instantly started like freaking out. I'm like, no way, this is evidence to prove to my parents that we should not hire her again. And then after that, I remember I saw that she ended up going live, and when she was live, in the background of the stream that she was doing, my underwear that she stole and my devil's cream towel was in the background of the live stream. She was legit using them for content. Honestly, this blew my mind, and I remember I instantly went to go show my parents, and I told them, you cannot hire this girl anymore. She's legit a star, a hub star, mom. And then my mom has ended up calling her and ended up, you know, firing her, and then she was all pissed off, yelling over the phone about how like I broke China, but honestly, I told her that I didn't, and she believed me more because, well, you know, I proved my point and proved my parents that I was right. And yeah, long story short, that was basically the story of me and the maid. That's literally it. Honestly, it was crazy to know that the entire time she was just stealing things from me and using it to, like, you know, use on the internet on her Hubstar channel. But it was actually insane how it all went down. Anyways, other than that, that is basically it for today's story. Make sure you guys do leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. Seriously, it means a lot when you guys do. And on top of that, didn't mention I'm live on Twitch, so if you guys do want to watch something live, go ahead and click in the description down below and watch me live playing video games and telling crazy stories like this one. Anyways, like I always say, fall for more embarrassing stories. All right, peace out, guys.